Welcome to the McKnight Center, and thank you for joining us on Center Stage. During this series, we invite you to learn alongside us as we take a closer look at the performing arts, guest artists, and so much more. We encourage you to keep on learning and to create your own fun at home. Today we have Jackie Skara joining us. She is the viola professor for the Michael and Ann Greenwood School of Music, a part of OSU's College of Arts and Sciences. Later, Jackie will help us find and adjust pitch on our own string instrument. But first, let's enjoy as Jackie takes center stage and performs the first movement of Paul Hindemith's Opus 25, number 1. For our at-home string instrument, you will need the following: an empty tin can with a wider opened mouth and 4 rubber bands. With our first and second rubber band, you will stretch them from top to bottom, one end opening across the top. Our third rubber band, you will stretch open and place around the tin can, as well as the first and second rubber bands. We'll take the bottom of the first and second rubber bands to fold them up and stretch across the top. Take the sides of the third rubber band and stretch them down across the bottom. With our fourth rubber band, again, we'll stretch open and around the tin can, keeping that third rubber band in place. Now, we can space our top 4 rubber bands evenly across the opening. Once we've done that, feel free to grab some construction paper and tape and take liberty to decorate your at-home string instrument. Now, Jackie Skara will join us to help us find and adjust pitch for our at-home string instrument. Now that we have our at-home instrument and we've gotten a chance to hear you perform, Jackie, I want to learn a little bit more about your viola and maybe any kind of advice you could have for us and the at-home viewers in playing our instrument. So can you tell us a little bit more about the strings and specifically on the viola and the rest of the string family?
Sure. So the string family is made up of the violin, viola, cello, and bass. Traditionally, each of those instruments have 4 strings, and I have my viola with me here right now. Each of these strings is set to a different pitch. From lowest to highest, we have our C string, G string, D string, and A string.
So how are you able to set those different pitches? What do you go about? Because I can visually see that from C, D, G, and A, there's maybe some difference in thickness and thinness, but do you do more to be able to set those 4 pitches?
That is correct. So strings or rubber bands or anything that you want to vibrate physically is going to be affected by the length of the string, the thickness of the string, and the tension of the string. So you have this combination to work with. We want all of our strings on the viola to be the same length. So now I have to adjust the tension and the thickness. And if you were to see up close on a string instrument, the A string is substantially thinner than the C string. Mm-hmm. And the viola is smaller than the cello. The cello has thicker strings. The bass has the thickest because it's the lowest, etc. So on the viola, we have different thickness of strings, and then they have slightly different tensions.
Okay, so you've mentioned C, D, G, and A. I'm curious, you've just only named 4 notes, but in your performance, and anytime somebody goes to hear the orchestra, we know that they're exploring more than 4 notes. How are you able to, just visit all the different pitches in a scale if you only have your strings set to 4 pitches?
Well, our open strings are the same length, but every time I put my finger down on a string, I'm actually changing that string's length. So my first finger goes on a string, the vibrating portion of the string is only the distance now from my finger to the bridge. So since I've made that string now shorter, I haven't adjusted the tension and I haven't adjusted the thickness, right? Mm-hmm. Only the length, and so now it's higher in pitch. And if I were to go up higher onto the viola, that's higher than there because I only have this vibrating distance now from my finger to the bridge.
Now, let's go ahead and jump into our at-home instrument. I have 2 different ones here, and one I've taken a little bit more time, and you can see it's finished because I've placed my decorative border around that you at home can really fancy up. But I have one that's in mid-process, and if I play it, I can tell that it's not really in any kind of order, whether low to high. So for our at-home viewers who they've come to this point, how can we change this? How can we affect the pitch to each of our strings now?
So remember, we have 3 variables. We have tension. The lower the tension, the lower the pitch. Higher the tension, higher the pitch. We have thickness of the string or rubber band. So since we have all the same rubber bands here, we can't adjust that so much. And then we have the length. And actually there is some flexibility here because you see we have a circular top. So at the widest point, that will be the longest string that can give us a lower pitch. If we were to go closest to the edge right there, we'd have a shorter string distance. We could feasibly get a higher pitch.
Mm-hmm. So when I was setting this one, I definitely thought about tension. And for our learners, tension, we're just simply talking about how loose or how tight it is, right?
Exactly.
So if we want to think looser, the pitch is going to be
lower.
Okay, so I can maybe play around with it and really loosen up the tension over the opening. That's the most important part.
Correct.
Whereas if I want a higher note, then I'm going to need to do what to my rubber band?
Make the rubber band tighter.
Okay, so I could spend time adjusting this and going, but I have this one set that I did the best I could, so. And even though they may not be perfect intervals or space in between, would you agree that I did an okay job from low to high?
Yes, they're very much from low to high.
So then, if they get to that point, what is a way that maybe they could really explore setting specific pitches? If, they play around with it and they challenge themselves, is there another tool that you could suggest to them to set specific pitches?
Sure. So if you have a piano at home, that's a wonderful resource because you can go to the piano and you can play a note and you can try to match it with your at-home instrument. However, the internet also has many resources and you can Google different pitches or different names because every pitch has a unique frequency, and that means how many times it vibrates in a second, that rubber band right there. So that unique frequency, we can ask the computer to reproduce for us. So you can type into the computer, what is the sound of an A on a violin string, and it will play that pitch for you. You don't even have to have the violin or piano.
So you said frequency, and that makes me think I cannot, not only could I hear the difference of the pitches, but you make it sound like our at-home viewers could even see the difference of the pitches?
You might not be able to see how fast a string is vibrating per second, but yes, that's one of the cool things about our string instruments and our at-home instruments. When you pluck the string, and I can pluck my strings here, I can actually see the string wiggling back and forth, and it wiggles so fast that it looks like a blur to me at this point. But I encourage you to go to YouTube and look at a string vibrating under a microscope and in slow motion, and you can see the string wiggling back and forth, and it's very cool.
Very cool. So if they're successful and they've set these different pitches while sitting down at the piano, do you think they would be able to even challenge themselves further to playing a song?
Sure. So I think about thinking back to your first couple years of elementary music class. What songs did you sing? A lot of those songs only have a few pitches. Now, the difference between this at-home instrument and mine is that it doesn't have a fingerboard to be able to change the individual pitch. So our at-home instrument only has 4 possibilities right now. If we wanted to play Mary Had a Little Lamb or Hot Cross Buns, it would work because there are 3 pitches. If we wanted to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, we need 6. So you'd have to add 2 rubber bands to your at-home instrument, but you could do it.
And which is possible, and we even mentioned earlier, maybe experimenting with different thickness and sizes of rubber bands, that it's all a matter of just trying, exploring, and testing it out, right?
Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing all those tips and tricks for us to make music. While you're at home making your own music, we encourage you to record yourself. Share that with us in the comment section below, and we can't wait to hear all the music that you're making. A special thank you to Dr. Skara. Thank you for being with us today.
You're welcome.
And a special thank you to each of you, our viewers, advocates, and patrons at home. We encourage you to keep learning with us. Keep an eye out for our next installment, and until then, keep creating at home.